My name is Bankole Abiodun, and I want to welcome you to another episode of our lesson on Ogun class. Today, we'll be looking at the essay writing. Specifically, we'll be looking at informal letters. Oh, I know when I mention letters, a lot of ideas will have come into your heart. Yes, I know you remember, even when you are in the primary school, your teacher gave you different types of letter to write. Remember that? How I spent my last holidays. No, yes, you remember. And you also remember, one of the compositions given to you in those days was my mother, my father, my family. All those ones are what we call composition. But we want to go a step further today to look at the different types of composition we have, especially laying emphasis on the informal letter. In this lesson, my objective is to define what an informal letter is, to know the features of informal letters, and to know how to write informal letters. Let's go on further. For the purpose of this class again, I'm going to divide this type of letter into 4 different parts: the address, the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. Let me emphasize here that this particular topic will be of immense benefit to our students, especially those in the senior school, most importantly those that are preparing for the SSC exam, be it NECO. This particular topic, as you know, question usually comes out from it in the exams. Let's start with the address. The first thing that you need to know, or you get yourself familiar with, is the way you write your address. Of course you know, that is the first thing that you will do in the exam if you are picking this question. I want you to pay particular attention to the way I have written the address. It is very important for you to know how to write this because the assessment of your essay starts from the address. Take a look at my address there. You have 2, Adeosun Street, Many of our students nowadays, they usually include number, N-O, before the 2. This is not acceptable. If you do that in the exam, the examiner will ring it. And of course, you know, that is -half. So when you write your 2, put a comma after it, it could be 69, it could be 100. But immediately you write that, put a comma after it, then take note of the Adeosun, it should be capitalized, the letter A should be capitalized. Then the S of the street also should be capitalized. And immediately you have a comma after that. Look at the second line, Itaoshin. The I of Itaoshin is capitalized, the O of Oshin is capitalized, and immediately you put a comma after it. The next one is Abeokuta. Of course, the A of Abeokuta is also capitalized at the beginning, and after it you have a comma. And Ogun State, O of Ogun is capitalized, and the S of State is capitalized. Please, there is no hyphen or dash between Ogun and State. This is the way it is acceptable. This is the way it is written. And lastly, look at the date, 6th March, 2020. After 2020, you have a full stop. Please, do not write the TH while when it is not flying. Don't let it be 6 raised to power TH because it is not acceptable. This is what we call a block format of address. Someone will ask me, sir, but assuming we are writing this letter, I am writing this letter outside the country. It's the same thing. If you are writing outside the country, then it means where you have the full stop after Ogun State is going to be a comma. Then you write Nigeria, you put a full stop. So at the end of the day, your address will have 2 full stops. If it contains more than 2 full stops, then there is a problem with the address. Let's go to the next one. This is another format of writing your address, which we call slanting format. If you look at it critically, it's not all that different from the one that I wrote initially, or that the one you saw in the previous slide. The only difference is the positioning of the day, the month, and the year. Then you will see that it is not in the block form, it's in the slanting form. Please, when you are writing, punctuation mark is very important because it is a technical aspect of the exam that the examiner will look at. Let's move on. Now we move to another stage in this type of letter, which is the introduction. The introduction is where you actually begins the writing of your letter. Before I go on further, let me quickly say this, that when you are writing your informal letter, it does not have a title. It must not have a title, because by way of definition, we say this is a type of letter that is written to someone that you are familiar with. The person you are writing to, you are familiar with. The person is your relative, your uncle, someone that is close to you. Therefore, you do not need a title. Therefore, look at this. Dear Shola. You do not write dear sir in this type of letter, or dear ma, because this is a type of letter that is based on familiarity. The person you are writing to, you are familiar with that person. Let's take a look at this typical introduction. It gives me a great pleasure to write this letter to you. I believe you are fine and doing well in your studies. From this introduction, you are showing to us that the person you are writing to, you are familiar with that person. There is a cordial relationship between you and the person. It's not somebody you don't know. And that is why we say it's a type of letter that is based on familiarity. Let's go on. The purpose of writing this letter is to inform you about, then you go on and discuss what you have in mind about the letter, precisely what the question demands you to do. So we have looked at the address, and equally we are looking at the introduction. Let's go on further. The body of the letter. This is where you actually do your discussion. This is where you actually talked about what the examiner demands you to do. Please make sure you don't go outside the perimeter of the question so that the examiner will not penalize you. The body of the letter should be written in paragraphs. I believe we all know what paragraphs are. In a paragraph, you must have what we call a topic sentence. And it is that topic sentence that you discuss what you want to talk about. Mind you, a paragraph on an idea, and in that idea, you must express yourself to actually let the examiner know what you are saying. It is not enough for you to write your topic sentence, but the most important thing for you is to explain what you have written. In that, you'll be able to get good marks from the examiners. The paragraph must contain one major idea, which I have said earlier on. The beginning of each paragraph must be properly linked. It must be cohesive and coherent. Let me talk a bit on this. When you talk of linking a paragraph, don't forget, whatever question you are being asked, you have to be mindful of the fact that your idea must flow. You must not have what you call a disjointed essay, because the person you are writing to will want to follow the trend of your writing. And in addition to that, when you are linking your paragraph, try as much as possible to avoid the use of secondly, thirdly, fourthly, fifthly. No, this is not acceptable. We will talk about this later in the course of this lesson. Therefore, your idea must flow. You must make the examiner know that you know what you are doing, because in doing that, you are doing yourself a great favor and you are going to have good grades. Let's continue. Now, I want to talk about those things which you need to be careful of when you are writing, especially in the body of your essay. I've talked about it some minutes ago. First, avoid the use of firstly, secondly, thirdly. I've emphasized that and I'm re-emphasizing it again. Please, as much as possible, let's use linkers that will make our essay be very smooth in reading. Don't forget that the examiner that will assess your essay is more intelligent than you. And we want to assume that having spent 6 years in the secondary school, you should know better. So let's take note of that. Rather, we advise to use also, that is when you are presenting ideas that are in the same direction. Furthermore, you can use that to link your paragraph. In addition, you can use that to link your paragraphs. And this will bring your ideas to a very, to run into a very smooth idea for the examiner to read, please. The language is very essential. The language of an informal letter is soft and loose. Why do we say it's soft and loose? Because the language you make use of in informal letter is a language that relates. It's not an official language because the person you are writing to is someone you are familiar with. And as a result of that, we expect, or it allows the use of slangs, idiomatic expression, and proverbs. Take note of this, as long as it is relevant to the topic of discourse. What does that mean? It means you don't just make use of your idiomatic expression anyhow. For example, when you are narrating an experience or you are writing an essay and it has nothing to do with something like the man kicked the bucket and all of a sudden you just found it in your essay, it is irrelevant. And that is why we are saying that if you are using any of these devices, it must be relevant. Otherwise, it is not compulsory to make use of them. I hope you are enjoying the class. Thank you. Let's go on further. Also, the letter allows the use of contractions or shortening forms such as can't. You can make use of that. It is allowed in the letter. Won't. You can make use of it. Should and shouldn't and so on. You are allowed to make use of it. It is allowed to be used in this type of letter. I want you to take note of something, that abbreviation of codes, and let me say this, that this is becoming something that is rampant among our students, and we need to be very careful about this. You need to stop the use, or the use of codes and abbreviations are not allowed when you are writing informal letter. Many of us, we are used to, anytime we want to make use of our phones, instead of writing in the full words, we make use of the codes. And that is why I've taken it upon myself to let you know that when you are writing this type of letter, codes are not allowed. Let's see some of those things. E.g., look at this. COS, you put it in inverted comma, meaning because. There is no examiner that will accept this in case, instead of this. No. If you are writing because, make sure you write it in full. If you write this in the exam, the examiner is going to penalize you. Let's look at the other one. U, ordinary letter U. If you write this in the exam, instead of this, the examiner is going to penalize you. Look at the next one, before. B and for. There is nothing like that in the English language. What we have is B-E-F-O-R-E, before. Oh, now you can now see. I can hear you saying, oh, and I used to write this, so please, I want to advise. Henceforth, you don't write this when you are writing your essay. Furthermore, try as much as possible those words that you don't know the spellings. It is better for you, take your dictionary, check them up in the dictionary and know the correct one. By so doing, you are helping yourself. Let me say this, that any words that you know in English language and you don't know the spelling, it is always good for you to go back to the dictionary that we call the master teacher, which will put you through. I'll be right back after this timeout.
Hello? Hello? Are you there? I was just saying that we have to use our creative superpowers to achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. But how? Although the Earth is just a tiny speck in space, it just seems enormous to us because we are on it. The Sustainable Development Goals can seem huge too. But if you focus on fixing the things where you live, you can make a big difference. There are 3 ways you can help. You can invent, innovate, and campaign. So buckle up and let's take a lightning flight around the world to see what other young people are doing already. This is the beautiful city of Istanbul in Turkey, where we meet Elif. She's an inventor. Like many big cities, there's a lot of pollution in Istanbul. A lot of it's caused by petroleum-based plastics. Elif wasn't happy about that and wondered what she could do. So she invented a new natural plastic made from banana skins. No, seriously. It's cheap, easy to recycle, and you can make it in your own kitchen. And if you like banana desserts, you can't really lose unless you eat too much.
Welcome back. I was talking about the issue of the using of the codes before we went on that short break. Let me re-emphasize it again that when you make mistakes like this, valuable marks are lost. And as a result of that, I don't want you to fall victims of that. Henceforth, please let us desist from that. I want to talk about the conclusion of the essay. After you might have written all that needed, after you might have explained yourselves, all other things that you want to say, you need to be careful when concluding your essay. In fact, this has created so many problems amongst our students that they found it difficult to differentiate how to conclude an informal letter and a formal letter. Even some of them went ahead and signed at the end of this letter. May I say at this junction that anytime you are concluding your informal letter, please and please make sure that you either conclude it this way, yours sincerely. I want to emphasize on this. There are times when candidates, they put apostrophe after the S or even before the R. This is not acceptable. If you do that, you are losing valuable marks. Equally, at times we see our candidates, our students, writing the S of sincerely in capital letter. Equally, this is not acceptable. Worst of the experience, we see our candidate even omitting the E, the letter E. Please, and that is why I said the other time that make sure you know the spellings of the word you are writing so that you don't lose valuable marks. The difference between A1 and B2 could be your carelessness. At the same time, the difference between A1 and B2 could be your being steadfast and being committed and responsible. I want you to be the steadfast candidate, and I want you to be the responsible candidate that knows what he or she is doing. Then when you are ending, simply put your name, your own name. Ashake, that's the name of a person. And thereafter, you put your full stop, and that's the end. Let me emphasize this, that I am not saying when you are concluding, you write this side. No. I only put this here for illustration purpose. When you are concluding towards the right-hand side of your letter. The right-hand side of your letter. Please, as much as possible, make sure that you shift your hands towards this side when you are ending it. Just the same position you wrote your address. Then you can end the address, your letter through this way again. This is also acceptable. Yours affectionately. If you look at the two examples that I have on the board, you will discover that there was no instances where I put an apostrophe after before R or after S. Neither did I put a letter, the capital letter, here. You can discover that this is small letter, this is small letter. The same thing you would do if you are using this particular pattern. Yours affectionately, comma. This comma is highly essential because it's a mechanical thing. A lot of candidates fail the exam not because they don't know what they are writing, not because they don't know what they are doing, but because of these little things. Please, as much as possible, be careful with the way you are using your punctuation marks. So at the end of the day, you write your name. Please do not sign. Signature is not allowed in this type of letter. I believe you are enjoying the class. Thank you. Now, I want you to do something for me. And that is, I want to give you an assignment. Do you want to do it? Thank you. I know you would love to do it. And that is what I want to give you now. Look at this assignment. Write a letter to your friend in another school, in another town, telling him or her how you have been preparing for your SSC at home. Let me repeat this. Write a letter to your friend in another town, telling him or her how you have been preparing for your SSC at home. I know many of you want to look at the fact that for now the school is not in session, but still you can do this. And I want you to write this assignment and forward it to our website. We'll be glad to receive it and we will respond equally. Please, I want you to know that this particular question should not be written less than 450 words. Well, if you are in the SS1 class or SS2, you can be allowed to write 350. But if you are in SS3, please, I will encourage you to write 450 words because you know that is NECO and WAEC standard. Attempt this question, and I promise that we'll do justice, we'll mark it, and we'll get across to you. Just to know if what you have taught you today, you were able to get it right. I want to thank you very much for listening and watching. My name is Bankole Abiodun. Do have a pleasant time. Bye for now.